They say you always remember the first time you're humiliated in public. I suppose that's true. For me, it happened on a late September afternoon, light slanting through the grimy windows of our art school studio in Lisbon, a place thick with the whiff of solvent and ambition, paint-smudged dreams pressed against stone walls old as empire. My palms were sweating, but I kept my chin high, ready to show them what I'd made. I stood at the front next to the dress form draped in my creation, a jacket made from deconstructed fisherman's canvas, thick and ochre-stained, mended with lilac stitching and lined with blue silk. The concept was broken things remade, the sort of idea that made my heart beat harder and my cheeks run hot, but I could smell their skepticism already. Around me, a half-moon of classmates, young men and women in cropped black sweaters, double-rolled jeans, or thrifted finery stitched in neon threads, stared or whispered. My sketchbook shook a little in my grip. Professor Salgado looked at the jacket, then at me, her head tilted with feigned curiosity. Why, she mused, flipping a strand of silvered hair from her face, would anyone want to wear a fisherman's net on their skin? Is this satire, a joke at our expense? Ripples of laughter, harsh, staccato, punched the air. Louis, with his expensive shoes and affected limp, smirked as if he knew the punchline already. Maybe Anna thinks poverty is chic, he muttered, too quietly for the professor but loud enough for me. A slow-burning anger kindled in my gut, but I pressed it down. I told myself not to react, don't show them it hurts. But my hands were in fists until the knuckles ached. I tried to explain, voice cracking. It's about honoring the working class, the history of the city, the past, the ordinary. Carlos barked a laugh. That's ridiculous. Who's gonna pay more than €3 for that on the street? Another girl, Sophia, twisted her mouth like she'd tasted something sour. You could just buy a real jacket and save the drama. It kept coming, wave after wave. It's ugly, you'll never get into fashion, Lisboa, with that. Trying too hard, dreaming too small, trying to be different, but it looks like garbage. Salgado didn't stop them. She only smiled that sleek predatory grin and said, "Thank you, Anna. Next time, perhaps consider starting from a place of good taste." Rage swirled thick as smoke, but I swallowed it. I nodded, face locked in polite mask, burned to air inside. When I packed my things, I did it quietly, rage hidden under my tongue. In the days that followed, their whispers brushed my back as I passed. At home in my mother's flat in Grassa, my story met only weary resignation. "You're doing all this for what?" my mother said one night, spooning cheap soup into chipped bowls. "No one in this family designed anything except for pastries and bread." She nudged my brother Rui, who only grinned at me over his phone. "You watch too much TV," he said. "Lisbon isn't Paris. Nobody cares who makes the trousers. Just get a job, Anna." I said nothing because the fight would turn bitter loud. Instead, I finished my soup and went to my small bedroom to draw. My sketchbook curled at the corners from use, filled with lines that made sense to no one else. I'd trace collars and sleeves, create shapes with broken hems and wild colors, dreaming of runways that would never host my name. The months went on, studio critiques never got kinder. Each time I stood and explained my textiles, their glares sharpened. My parents didn't ask about school unless it was to press about jobs or bills. Lisbon was beautiful at night, cobbles shining with spilled wine and gold lamplight, but to me it felt cold. I wondered if I'd fooled myself. I worked nights at a laundry. Sorting faded linens for the hotels down near Alfama, I'd rub the cotton scraps between my fingers and dream up patterns, my mind always stitching, even as my body slumped with fatigue. One night in January, I was walking home from the tram, chilled through, when Sophia pulled up beside me in her boyfriend's car. She dropped the window, peering at me with flat eyes. "Are you still doing the whole fashion thing?" Her voice was syrupy, fake sweet. I didn't answer. She laughed, not unkindly, just certain, the way people get when they know all stories have endings. "You should try marketing or cleaning. Old fabric won't make you famous." The car moved on. I stood in the cold street, alone but for the cats winding through trash bins, and let that anger settle over me again. I wasn't sure I'd ever claw out. But rage, I discovered, is fuel. It heats you from the inside when nothing else is left. In the next months, I worked harder. I stopped trying to impress Salgado. I started making clothes that made sense to me. My studio table overflowed with discarded fabric, lace tablecloths, fisherman's rope, old uniforms from flea markets, all stripped and repurposed. My friends, the few I had left, called me obsessed. That was fine. I was obsessed with proving I could make something out of what everyone else threw away. Around graduation, the big fashion houses in Lisbon announced their annual design contest. The prize: A 6-month internship at Praga, a minor but respected atelier off Avenida de Liberdade. I wanted it so badly my hands trembled reading the announcement. I hesitated before applying. It felt stupid, after all no one had ever looked twice at my work. On the night before the submission deadline, I sat at my desk in the glow of my phone light, running my hands over each seam of my entry garment, a long, structured coat that started as a government-issue rain cloak, now remade with velvet patches, hand-stitched statements of longing and fear embroidered in the lining. I pressed my forehead to the fabric and thought, do I really want this? In the quiet, I heard my mother's voice from the kitchen, her, already dreaming of grandchildren and retirements that wouldn't come. I heard Salgado, her disdain curling at the corners of the room. I heard laughter. I heard my own heart. I submitted. I barely slept. Weeks passed. I returned to sorting laundry, drawing in the slivers of time I could find. The school forgot me. Rui got promoted at the bakery. He started giving me advice about real life. Then that unexpected afternoon I received the email. I'd won, not just placed one. At first I suspected a mistake. Praga's logo on the email, my own name bold with formalities, Anna Pereira winner, my knees buckled. I cried so hard that my mother, eyes wide, thought someone had died. It didn't matter right then if anyone believed in me. I dragged the coat from my closet, showed my mother. She patted my shoulder as if mollifying a child. That's nice, Anna, but can you make a living from it? Maybe I couldn't. Still, I packed my bag with trembling hands and left for the atelier, promising I wouldn't have to borrow metro fare again. At Praga, my world opened wide. In the dusty mornings before the staff arrived, I slipped through racks of silk and brocade, breathing in the perfume of possibility. I swept floors, pressed seams, learned how an original is born from effort and error. I watched the principal designer, Clara, measure models inch by exacting inch, her pencil sharp as her voice. For the first month, no one looked at me. I dressed in second-hand jumpers, worked with my head down, but they soon noticed I could sew like the devil, quick hands, nearly invisible stitches. One day, Clara handed me a pile of discarded muslin and told me to make something unique. I did. They liked it. The team started to call me the magician. 6 months blurred into 2 years. I advanced, assistant, junior designer, eventually lead on a new women's line. I traveled with the team to Milan, Paris. I kept creating pieces that looked like history repainted with light. There were sleepless nights and broken needles, but I belonged. I called home weekly. My mother began to tell the neighbors about Anna in the city, though she still doubted. Meanwhile, Salgado's old warnings hissed in my dreams. I knew Lisbon would never really forget she'd mocked me. I never forgot either. That wound hardened to something cool and quiet. It didn't ache unless picked. 3 years after graduation, I returned to Lisbon, the city humming with spring. Praga was showing at Lisboa Moda. I was the headliner. My collection, Lisboa Reciclada, made entirely from found materials. Lace from old curtains, pinstriped suit scraps, silk linings, netting, all turned from detritus to desire. On the night before the show, I walked the winding alleys of Grassa, remembering. My family welcomed me with tight embraces and hurried questions. Rui laughed, squeezing my shoulder. Maybe I'll finally see your name on something besides a receipt. My mother made caldo verde, filling the kitchen with warmth. She smiled, almost proud but still worried. You are careful, Anna, it's not all golden. I kissed her cheek, breathing in her scent, cabbage, soap, old comfort. It's not golden. It's real. The next day I waited backstage, aware that even now few expected much from the girl with dirty fisherman's coats. I'd invited my mother and Rui, of course, but I steeled myself for more than their judgment. I heard Salgado would be there as a special guest. Luis was now freelancing at a little fashion magazine. Sophia did social media work. Their names were on the list. Curtains rose over a cool-lit stage, smelling faintly of ironed linen and nerves. My collection was first. Models strode out, women and men wearing my signature pieces, rugged jackets with elegant collars, skirts feathered with lace from grandmother's tables, vests tied with sea-worn rope, all of it a wild, impossible harmony. The silence swelled to something electric. In the crowd I glimpsed familiar faces. Luis, arms crossed tightly, jaw slack with disbelief. Sophia with her phone out, her thumbs tapping furiously. My mother was down front, hands pressed over her mouth as if to hold back a prayer. The finale came, a model striding in a long coat, storm blue with lilac stitches, lined in shining silk, a grown-up echo of that first mocked creation. I watched as the lights hit the embroidery, turning every thread into riverlight. For a moment, I could see my old studio, dusty, sour, filled with laughter not meant for me. My chest filled with something hot and cold and unspeakably rich. Show over, I went out. Backstage was a flurry, applause, cameras, interviews. I barely heard it. I searched for my family. I found them at the reception. My mother crying openly, clutching my hand so hard I could feel the years between us knotting together. Rui beside her, stunned into sheepish admiration. I turned, and there was Salgado, glass in hand, her expression unreadable. She nodded once, the tiniest bow, not an apology but a concession. Luis hovered nearby, staring as if I were a stranger. There was no joke now, no smirk, just that hungry disbelief gnawing at his certainty. Sophia came up with her phone, trying not to look eager. "You're everywhere now," she said, voice uncertain. I shrugged, thought of all the nights I'd waited for permission. Sometimes what seems ridiculous is just ahead of its time. That night, walking back to my mother's flat along the faded tiles of the old quarter, something in me stilled at last. I'd survived not by ignoring my rage and humiliation, but by using them, shaping them with careful, hidden hands. Lisbon glowed golden in the distance. I was home not because I'd proved them wrong, but because I'd finally let myself come back, as I was, not as anyone wished me to be. No apology left to make, only the simple, hard-won truth: I'd made something beautiful from what was thrown away, and this city, my city, finally saw it too.